This is for those who don't feel like they're good enough. They've been told over and over and over again that they're not worthy or they're not good enough or they don't deserve to be here. And I've been one of those people, and this is why this message is so heartfelt for me, is why I feel like I needed to make this video. I've been there. I've been a person who didn't feel like I was good enough, didn't feel like I was worthy. When I was going through depression, when I was going through anxiety, I felt like everybody else was just on a pedestal above me. Everybody was just so superior to me. And I realized that who am I to believe that? All I was doing was just telling myself this lie, telling myself a lie that I'm not worthy. Or if other people are telling me that I'm not worthy or that I'm not good enough or I'm not good at this and I'm not good at that, maybe I'm not good at certain technical skills, but that's not the point. Just feeling good enough in general, feeling like you belong here, that's basically an essential human need. Who is somebody else to deny that from you? Who are you to deny that from yourself? There's basically two causes of this, or two main causes of this. You feel like you're not good enough either because somebody who you really look up to tells you you're not good enough, maybe a family member or a friend, and they make fun of you, they tell you you're not good enough, or you tell yourself that you're not good enough. Maybe you made some mistake in the past and you are not able to detach and let go, or maybe learn that lesson and you keep basically punishing yourself for making the same mistake, lowering your self-esteem, lowering your self-confidence. And I was at this point where I had zero self-esteem, zero self-confidence. I couldn't talk into a camera like this. I couldn't even face my own negative insecurities, inner flaws, big weaknesses. I couldn't face any of this. And all I did was just lie to myself and tell myself that it was okay. And it really wasn't okay because I was suffering inside. I was crying out for help. And the problem is, when you're suffering inside and crying out for help, on the inside, nobody's going to hear you. That's exactly what happened to me. I bottled it in for so long, and that's why it's all now coming out now 3 or 4 years later, even after I overcame my depression, found self-love, and I'm at the point now where I feel like I have these lessons and memories that I want to share with people, that when I felt like I wasn't good enough, I blamed the outside world. And sure, maybe people could be more supportive, but not everybody is going to see the vision. Not everybody is going to see your own inner beauty. And at that point, it's kind of up for you to see your own inner beauty. I see it. I see everyone's inner beauty now, but it's only because I've searched within and found my own inner beauty. I know this all sounds very cliche. That's the way I've experienced it in my own life. One of my biggest flaws, one of my biggest insecurities was my looks. How I look, my ugly face, and my ugly face. And I was always very hard on myself. I didn't think I was very good looking, and I think that was kind of one of my biggest flaws with just like my social skills, being able to talk to people. I was always very insecure about how I looked. But the bigger issue wasn't actually how I was on the outside, it was how I was on the inside. Because there are people that are pretty ugly that are still pretty confident, people that are very ugly that are still very confident. And it took me maybe 20 to 21 years to realize that it doesn't really matter how I look. It matters, first of all, how I feel, and it matters how I develop myself. If I don't feel like I'm good enough based on some external circumstance, such as my looks, that I can't control, well, I understand that I can't control that. I've got to let it go. I can't really care too much. If people don't like the way that I look and don't want to be friends with me because of the way that I look, well, nothing I can do about that. If it's something that's out of my control, nothing I can do about that. I really took my power back and realized, what can I work on? I can work on healing my deep emotional wounds. I can focus on being a better person. I can focus on expressing my authenticity and really discovering what my authenticity really is, discovering my true self, something that I never really knew. I never really looked into my heart. Again, another cliche expression, but your heart is going to tell you more truth than your mind is. Oof. Scientific-minded people will not like to hear that, because a lot of people in our society, or at least in Western culture, we're very left-brained, analytical, scientific, maybe even atheist, always focused on money and business. Sure, this stuff has its role in society and it's important in some aspects, but when it's also mixed in with the right brain, intuition, heart, gut, these things are just as important. And here's one of the big things: you're feeling like you're not good enough. If you're feeling like you're not good enough, it's because you're listening to your mind 100%. You're not listening to your heart. You're not listening to your gut. And now for people who have never really tapped in that deeply, don't really believe in intuition, think that intuition, it really is something that you can believe in and not something that you can experience, you don't even trust me. You're going to have to tap in with yourself to get these truths, to get these wisdoms, these musings from yourself. It's not something that you can't just tap into somebody else. Obviously, I can say these things, but they're not going to resonate as deeply as if they're not coming straight from your source, straight from your heart, straight from your inner light that eventually shines through. But when you're thinking that you're not good enough, this is just this egoic belief. Not good enough compared to who? Compared to what? When ego, in duality, there are all these external objects, all these other people around you that you're comparing yourself to. You know, I'm better than him, or I'm worse than her, and all of this stuff. When you go into your heart, when you really tap in, whether through meditating, taking a couple deep breaths, introspecting, it'll take more than a couple deep breaths, maybe 15 to 20 minutes. You start to get to this point where you realize, yes, there is no self. There is no self, there is no other, all is one. Again, not a cliche. The actual thing of what's going on here. When you realize that it's all one, everybody is on the same level, we are all reflections, kind of like divine mirrors of each other, you realize that there is no need to compare because diversity is what comprises this unity. Every single part, every single piece of the whole is equally as important as any other piece of the whole. And not just that every single piece or every single part is equal to every single part, but every single piece or part is the whole itself broken off into a piece, which is also the whole at the same time. The word holon comes to mind, very interesting term, but oh gosh, there's just so much I want to say and so much I'd love to rant, but I just know that anybody who's really lacking this self-confidence, who doesn't feel like they're good enough, and I really just want to say that it's all based on, not just all based on your beliefs, but it's all based on these lies that you believe. If you truly believe, like I did, that you weren't good enough or that you're not attractive or anything, that is a lie. That is a lie that you're telling yourself, or that's a lie that other people are telling you that you are choosing to believe. So first of all, even if you've been believing this stuff since I was like maybe 4 or 5, these are just beliefs. These are beliefs that you can overcome. The longer you've been holding these beliefs, the more entrenched they are, the more firm they are, they're still able to be changed. But just because they're lies, if you believe in a lie hard enough for long enough, it will become true to you. You'll start to adapt it. You'll start to adapt to it, and you'll start to make it a reality. You start to make it want to be true, or you want to make it be true. If you believe this lie for so long that you're telling yourself that you're not good enough, you will start to find evidence in the world around you that will support it. People sending you mean comments, people making fun of you, your mind telling you that you're not good enough, that will inform your self-talk. Even if these things are lies, if you basically attach your emotions to it, if you start to believe that it's actually true, if you start to give it validity, it will start to become true for you, and it will inform the way you perceive reality. It will inform the life that you live. Most people, especially me, when I had this feeling of zero self-confidence, zero self-esteem, feeling like I wasn't good enough, I thought there's not a chance that this could just be a belief. This is the way it is. This is the truth. But no, there is nothing objective about that. There's nothing objective about you being not good enough, because again, in the objectivity, when it's all just one, everything is equal. When we're talking about subjectivity, the ego comparing itself to others, the ego is temporary. The ego is kind of powerless compared to, again, the unity, the whole, the one. I know I'm kind of rambling there. Wanted to get back to when I was saying about, oh gosh, all right, take a deep breath. When you don't feel like you're good enough, it's this belief, it's this lie, maybe even a set of lies that all basically commingle with each other, intertwine with each other to form this basically belief system about how you're not good enough. People who are like me, who don't feel like they're good enough, they'll see other people with a lot of self-confidence, a lot of self-esteem, maybe even judge them. Who is this person to think that they're so good? And again, it's not, you don't want to get to the point where you're like arrogant or cocky, but, and I actually used to be way too arrogant, way too cocky, and then I had this big ego backlash where I went from way too full of myself, way too arrogant, way too cocky, maybe when I was in like elementary school, middle school, to then just plunge down to the polar opposite of not feeling good enough, having zero self-esteem, zero self-confidence. When you keep believing this lie, you keep reinforcing this. And not only, it's not as simple as just to break these lies, to tell them that they're not true. Because again, if you've been believing this and telling yourself these stories for 10, 20 years about how you're not good enough, how other people are better than you, how you have all these weaknesses and flaws, that could be true. But not only do you have to basically chip at these lies, and the way you kind of chip through them to see the truth is through meditation, just 30 minutes to an hour per day, just sitting and breathing. And it's not going to be easy at first. You're going to have to deal with a lot of this pain, which I did. I've probably been meditating for about 4 years now. The first, people don't like to hear this, but the first year or two, it's kind of painful. You have to get through all this negative emotions, really face them with love. Again, not as easy done as said. A lot easier said than done. But once you start to chip through them, peel them back, see them for what they really are, you then have to replace them with the truth or the more positive beliefs. And you might be thinking, well, if I'm just lying to myself and telling myself that I'm not good enough, if I start telling myself that I'm good enough, isn't that also just a belief? Isn't that also just a lie that I'm telling myself? That's an interesting perspective to take. But again, when you look from a broader view, when you start to tap in with your heart, with your gut while meditating, and you start to take the holistic intelligence that's here and mix it with the partial intelligence that's here in your left mind, fuse it, holistic intelligence, you start to see the bigger picture, you start to see the broader view, and you start to not just believe, but you know with a capital K, you know now that you are good enough. And it will take a while to get to this point. If, like me, for the first 20, 21 years of my life, I was entrenched in this belief system that I wasn't good enough and I had no self-confidence and no self-esteem. I didn't just snap my fingers and the next day I had a bunch of self-confidence and self-esteem. It took me a year of journaling, a year of writing poetry, making music, expressing myself, putting myself out here, to even get to this point now where I can just like rant into a camera and share this kind of story where I didn't feel like I was good enough. I would kind of take this analogy to climbing a mountain. Climbing a mountain, and on certain peaks, on certain spots, you find new teachers who teach you new lessons, and you find new practices such as meditation and cold showers and introspecting and really just letting your inner light shine through, which is at the end where this is all leading to. It's all leading to tapping in with your heart, connecting with that inner light. And if you have no idea what I'm talking about, tapping into your heart, connecting with your inner light, please just try meditating for 20 to 30 minutes. It's going to be a lot harder if you've never meditated before, but it's a very powerful experience that, again, can only really be experienced and not really talked about, because as you'll notice, definitely share with me if you do what you experience, but as you'll notice, once you get to that place of no mind, of no thought, of none of these beliefs going around in your mind, because you've started to observe it, you've started to see the thoughts for what they really are, as illusions, and you shine the light of your consciousness onto them, you realize that it's all just the light, it's all just the consciousness, but you get to this place of no mind, no thought, divine silence, there's nothing but what is. When you realize what actually is, you'll probably start to laugh for a while. You'll start. I remember the first kind of feeling I had about it was I was like mad. I was mad because I realized what it all was. I was experiencing it. I was being like, wow, it was this the whole time, and I was fooling myself with all these crazy limiting beliefs. I also just want to preface this by saying that if you've never experienced it, if you've never gotten into a deep meditative state, all of this stuff is just theory. It's just theory without actually practicing it and experiencing it. It won't really do much good. Like, I didn't get to this point. I did read a lot of these spiritual teachers and all these practices, and they help to guide a little thing, but if you don't actually meditate and find this place of divine silence, this heaven, this mind state on your own through 20 to 30 minutes of meditation, maybe even an hour, it's kind of all just, fairy tales and fantasies, which is not. But back to my point, that was kind of a tangent, but once I actually truly experienced it for the first time, this kind of no mind, silence, divine silence, this infinite love, it's just all around you and all within you, but then you realize the around and within is really one, and there's no boundaries and no borders, and everything's one. You start to realize, or at least I realized, I was like, wow, I wasted the first 20 to 21 years of my life feeling like I wasn't good enough when there was no reason for me to feel like that. I was just reinforcing my ego. It also takes you to put your ego aside to do this. It's going to be very hard to meditate for 20 to 30 minutes if you can't detach from your ego a little. But again, that's scary to some people who think that the ego is everything and that there's nothing beyond that. There's nothing higher, or there's nothing else going on. There might be not. Again, try it for yourself. But my first reaction was that I was mad. I was like, how did I not know this? How did I not know this? Why did nobody tell me this? Well, again, a lot of these books I was reading, people are telling you this, but these are like 1 in 1,000, 1 in a million in our society, where most people are generally unconscious. Most people don't meditate. Most people aren't really tapped in with themselves, with their heart center. Not to say that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, there kind of is, because you see that in people's actions, all these fear-based actions and fear-based beliefs based on people not being good enough. And we always have to compare, and all the modern marketing is based on making you not feel like you're good enough. I didn't even think about that before starting this video, but that's a whole nother way that we start to feel like we're not good enough. It's because we see all this marketing and all this messaging and all these Hollywood movies. Not to say that they're not entertaining, but the point of these marketing schemes is not to make you a better person. It's basically to play with your monkey mind, to play with your psychology, to push your buttons, to make you feel like you need something to be whole, and then to go buy something that will then solve that problem that they aroused within you of making you feel like you're not good enough, or you don't fit in, so you need to buy this product. And the ironic part is that the more you buy this stuff, the more you get caught up in this endless consumerism, the more you realize that it doesn't fulfill you. And the emptier it actually... Wow. It's... I get like mad and like epiphany, like crying happy tears at the same time. See, this is great. This is the first time I actually feel like having genuine emotion during this and letting it flow and having authenticity. This is great. But it makes you feel really sad, because you know that business doesn't have to be this way. We don't have to be creating these problems. We should be helping solve problems and not manufacturing these fake solutions, these little Band-Aid patch solutions that, oh, you don't have any self-confidence or self-esteem, well, you should buy this because that will give you more self-confidence, more self-esteem, when in reality, your self-confidence and self-esteem, it can come through, getting good at playing the piano or getting good at singing or poetry, but that's based on a skill. That's great. That's a lot of fun. That's how I started to build confidence, by reading books and writing a lot and acquiring the skill, which was writing poetry, that made me feel confident as a person. But that confidence, that doesn't compare to the enormity of the confidence you get from meditating and tapping in with your heart center, tapping in with your intuition, and actually truly experiencing it with a capital I. Again, what I've been alluding to the whole time is that I was very mad. I shouldn't have been mad because after the first little sense of mad, all right, why did I not know about this? Then I just started laughing. You start laughing and you start thinking like, wow, I was so hard on myself for no reason. I was so mean to myself. I was judging myself. And not only was I judging myself, I was judging others way too harshly. Because again, we all have this image of what perfection should be, what perfection is to us. And when other people don't conform to that, we judge them. We subjugate them. But the problem is, we don't just look on the outside and judge, we look on the inside and judge. And I would say mostly we judge ourselves a lot harder than we judge others. Or maybe it was just me and my personal experience, is that I was never really too interested in judging other people because I was always so self-conscious. And maybe that even made me a little bit selfish. But I think it was more just I was very fearful. I was very fearful of what others would think of me, and that I thought that if I thought about them in a negative way, somehow, maybe some law of physics or something, that they would then think about me in a negative way. I'm not sure if it works like that, but it's a very interesting thing to think about. But yeah, this video is getting long. I really enjoyed how this went and how this is going. But for those who don't feel like they're good enough, first realize that we need to stop playing these games of comparison. Again, if it's like a skill, like playing sports, where there's an actual winner, then it makes sense. If you're not good enough, if you don't win the game, you're not good enough. But just at being a person, just existing, just embodying your truth, there is no way that you cannot be good enough. There is no scale to measure it on. There is no authenticity contest like, oh, this person's up here, they really embody their true self, and I'm down here, I don't express my true self. The whole point is that there's all this messaging from the outside that's coming in telling you that you're not good enough and that you have to conform to the way that you need to be. Oh gosh, there's so much I can say about this. There's all this messaging from the outside, either from your friends and family or from TV or from movies or from commercials, telling you that you need to change this aspect about yourself to conform with everybody. And if you don't, you're not good enough. Or if you don't buy this product or listen to this song or watch this series, then you are not normal. You don't fit in. And the conclusion I kind of reached was that maybe it's not worth it to fit in. It's kind of tough. It really is kind of tough, but I've kind of noticed throughout my entire life that I always just wanted to fit in. I always changed who I was and kind of suppressed my identity just to try to fit in and make friends. And, making friends is good. I like my friends, love my friends. But I also noticed that I was afraid of being alone. I think we're all afraid of being alone, but the more time I've spent over the past couple of years alone, introspecting, working on myself, improving myself, the more I've become very fulfilled and happy, joyous, peaceful, alone. And that's in no small part to meditating and just the firsthand experience I've had of it all. It really brings you to tears sometimes. If just a good 20 to 30 minute meditation session bringing you tears of joy, there's really nothing better than that. Well, I'm gonna wrap it up. That was a beautiful video. I felt that one. I hope you felt that one also. Have a good day.